the hells of North America, as the chairman or as the leader of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, as Dr. King worked 30 years ago for us. It is written in the scriptures, what greater love could a man have or a woman than to lay down their life for their brother, for their sister, for their friend. Dr. King laid down his life for us. And if for no other reason, we must honor him for laying down his life for us, but we must analyze his life. And we, as the most honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, that it is after one has made the transition, after they have made the transition to what some call death, but what others call to the realm of the ancestors or the Egungun, then a period can be placed behind the testament of that life. And then we can carefully and critically make an analysis of that life. Dr. King laid down his life for us, and Dr. King believed in the moral conscience of the white man. And since we're talking about civil rights and human rights here tonight...
The what, brother? The what? I'm gonna need you to explain that to me, brother.
I think it's fitting that we begin right there. He believed in the moral conscience of the white man. Well, I'm here tonight at D&J to tell you that the white man ain't got no morals and he ain't got no conscience. Dr. King believed in civil rights. Well, I'm here to tell you that the white man ain't too civil and he ain't too right. Malcolm believed in human rights. I'm here to tell you that the white man ain't too human and he ain't too right. It makes no difference whether it's civil rights or human rights. You must weigh the circumstances surrounding the very origin of...
Going after that white man with your paperwork and your lawyers and all that is impotent at best.
The white man into the world to then determine if he's capable of being civil, if he's capable of being human. This we must put on the scale of Ma'at and give it the Ma'atic weigh-in and see if it strikes the Ma'atic balance. And if it does not strike the Ma'atic balance, then we must make sure that we are not victims of history because it...
The Ma'atic balance. He talking about the scales of Ma'at, the balance of life, higher self versus lower self. That's what he's talking about right there. Ancient Egyptian knowledge.
It's written that he or she who does not learn the lessons of history is doomed to repeat them. 30 years ago, the prestigious, pristine presidential White House commission set up by Lyndon Baines Johnson, a redneck camel bred hunky from Texas, an outlaw from Texas.
Okay.
A gun-slinging outlaw from Texas. Lyndon Baines Johnson set up the Kerner Commission. And the Kerner Commission determined that America 30 years ago was two Americas, one black and one white, separate and unequal, and that the number one problem in America 30 years ago was white racism.
Okay.
30 years later, after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Kerner Commission has reconvened and determined...
Till this day, shout out to Dante Wilder.
...that America is still two Americas, one black and one white, separate still, unequal still, and that the number one problem in America today is still white racism. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., they questioned Jet Magazine staff, and journalists questioned the widow of Dr. Martin.
Jet Magazine is a huge part of our culture, and somehow we allowed it to just fall apart and go away. You know what I mean? A lot of people, when they think of Jet Magazine, older people like me, I'm 52. Older people like me grew up with Jet magazines and looking at Jet beauties, but like I grew up reading the Jet magazine from cover to cover, and they used to be it was a codifying media to black people back in the days, like through the 70s and 80s. For the most part, it started to get kind of wobbly in the 80s. It became gossip, entertainment, celebrity based. But Jet magazine used to be codifying media for black people in America.
Martin Luther King Jr., they questioned Sister Coretta Scott King, they questioned his daughter, they questioned his son, they questioned the Reverend Wyatt T. Walker, they questioned...
Where is the equivalent to Jet magazine today? It's missing. Do you hear the questions that the magazine asked, you know what I mean, Dr. King's family, it was serious back then. Nothing is serious now. Everything is a fucking gossip column. Who fucking who. Totally useless information.
Former city councilman Hosea Williams, who was one of his right-hand men. They questioned Andy Young, former mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, and former ambassador to the United Nations. They questioned them, and they questioned others, and they put the question to
I wonder did y'all catch that? Khallid slick, man.
them about success or failure. They put the question to them, have we really made progress 30 years after Dr. King? They wanted them to analyze the dream of Dr. King. And they all said that they could see some change here and there. But they all agreed that America had a long, long way to go. Some of them were even specific. 30 years after Dr. King, if we're going to deal with civil rights and human rights, and we're going to weigh it properly, we must understand that affirmative action, which was important to Dr. King, but never has been important to me, because the action has never been affirmative. We don't need affirmative action. We need reparations and freedom and independence, liberation and salvation.
It ain't new. And affirmative action was written with weasel language, whereas the word, they use like the word minority, and they stretched it every which way it can be stretched to include damn near anybody but a white man. And plenty of white men benefited from affirmative action, $5 Indians and all kind of shit like that. But it was a disaster at the end of the day.
But affirmative action was important to Dr. King.
It brought us no power.
30 years after Dr. King, affirmative action does not even remain a dream anymore. It's a nightmare now. A recalcitrant cold wind blowing through Congress, blowing through the Senate, blowing through the White House, whistling throughout the hells of North America, has now swept affirmative action almost but from the scene today. 30 years after the dream of the dreamer, Section 8 entitlement, quota systems that were supposed to level the playing field after people had been robbed of their names, their language, their religion, their culture, their God, their folkways, their mores, their norms, robbed of the very power of our own being. All of that is being erased today. Such measures that were supposed to be set up to level the playing field. Now you got devils, you got so-called Jews, imposter Jews coming up with theories and theorems on a bell curve.
Imposter Jews. Khallid is a Muslim, but one thing about Muslims, they study everything. He has a vast knowledge of history, religion, people, and just straight up common sense and courage. That's why he deserved this salute. But this your boy, Bless the Best, your host until the next post.